For 50 years, Bing Crosby and Bob Hope looked like best friends on screen. They made 7 road movies together and earned millions. But behind the cameras was a different story. When Hope was honored at the Friars Club, every Hollywood star showed up except one. Crosby was asked why he didn't come. His answer was brutal and cold. That moment revealed the truth about their relationship. What really happened between these two legends stayed hidden for decades. The real reason Crosby couldn't stand Hope had nothing to do with money or fame. Bing Crosby was born on May 3, 1903 in a small house his father had built with his own hands at 1112 North J Street in Tacoma, Washington. They named him Harry Lilies Crosby Jr., but no one filed the paperwork. The doctor forgot to register the birth. That one missing form would later cause decades of confusion as Hollywood couldn't quite decide how old Bing Crosby really was. At home, things weren't easy. His father, Harry Lowe Crosby, worked as a brewery bookkeeper and made just enough to feed their large Irish Catholic family. With 7 children packed into that little house, there was barely space to breathe. When political shifts cost Harry Sr. his job as county treasurer in 1905, they were forced to move again, scraping together what little they had. In 1915, when Kate's father passed away, he left behind 14 grandchildren and almost no financial help. The family somehow bought a house for $850. But even that was a heavy burden. Harry Sr. had to take whatever brewery work he could find to keep them afloat. His mother, Catherine Helen Harrion, everyone called her Cape, was born in Stillwater, Minnesota on February 7, 1873 and carried music in her bones. Their 4-bedroom house was always overflowing, not just with kids, but with sound. She gathered all 7 children around a worn piano and taught them folk songs, filling the cramped rooms with harmony. Bing shared his bedroom with 3 brothers, Larry, Everett, and Ted, where noise and chaos were part of daily life. They couldn't afford many records, so Bing would play the same ones over and over again, whistling along with Edison phonograph tunes and trying to copy Al Jolson's voice. Kate also worked at a dry goods store just to bring in extra income. She juggled shifts and children while holding the entire house together with music and faith. In 1906, the family left Tacoma and moved to Spokane when Bing was only 3. They rented a house at 303 East Cinto Avenue before finally building their own home at 508 East Sharp Avenue with the help of Harry Sr.'s brothers. Even with 2 bathrooms and 4 bedrooms, it still wasn't enough for a family of 9. Harry Sr. found bookkeeping work again, this time with Inland Brewery and Malting Company, but money was still tight. Bing attended Webster Elementary School, though he often skipped class. One day, he and his friends were caught stealing cinnamon buns and throwing them at cars. At just 8 years old, he spent a night in juvenile detention. That brush with trouble didn't scare him straight, but it gave him a story he would never forget. Sundays were spent serving as an altar boy at St. Aloysius Church, where Catholic discipline was strict and unforgiving. At home, life was loud. At church, it was silent. The contrast shaped him. He graduated from Gonzaga High School in 1920. In school, he joined elocution contests, recited Robert's service poems, and debated like a natural performer. To pay for jazz records, he worked every job he could find, delivering newspapers for the Spokesman Review, picking apples, working logging camps, cleaning brewery offices, and folding props at the Spokane Auditorium. He started working there in 1917 at age 14 and it changed everything. That was where he first saw Al Jolson perform live. Bing called it electric. He also played baseball for the Spoken Ideal laundry team, not for glory, but for extra cash. In 1921, while attending Gonzaga University, he joined a group called the Music Ailers. They played local dances and parties. And suddenly, Bing wasn't just a kid from a crowded house anymore. He was a voice people listened to. But underneath the music, there was something else. A family myth passed down like gospel claimed they were descended from Thomas, Prince and Patience Brewster of the Mayflower. His brother Larry even traced them back to a Yorkshire constable from 1204 named Gulf Rides Drosabe. They talked about aristocracy, but they lived in poverty. Bing later admitted the gap between who they said they were and how they actually lived gave him an inferiority complex that never went away. He didn't even have a birth certificate. Church records would be the only proof he existed. That confusion over identity made him hungry for more, for better, for applause. He was supposed to become a lawyer. But by 1925, in his final year at Gonzaga, Bing dropped out. His grades had slipped from B's to F's. The musicalators were paying him more than his part-time law clerk job ever could. He was sneaking out at night to jazz clubs like the Passin Cafe, soaking in the sound of McKinn's Cotton Pickers and the original Dixieland Jazz Band. He was leading a double life. Mass on Sunday mornings, speakeasies on Saturday nights. His mother was devastated. Family friends begged him to go back. He didn't. In 1923, Bing, Al Rinker, and A.L.'s sister, Mildred Bailey, formed a small act called Two Boys and a Girl. They played for $75 a week at the Pekin Cafe, more than enough for Bing to quit law for good. His nickname came from a comic strip called the Bingville Bugle. A neighbor called him Bingo from Bingville, and it just stuck. They performed at Doc Clemmer's theater, slipping jazz and scat into their act, which scandalized local audiences. Spoken wasn't ready for Catholic kids mixing black music into white shows, but they kept playing anyway. Then, in October 1925, Bing and Al packed up a beat-up 1916 Model T Ford and drove 200 M to Los Angeles. It took them 3.5 weeks. They averaged 200 M a day. Sleeping in one hotel room to save money, sneaking the second person in after dark. When they got to Hollywood, they crashed on floors and sang on sidewalks for coins. Bing worked as a soda jerk when he wasn't auditioning. On his first night in Hollywood, he got spectacularly drunk at Jane Jones's speakeasy in the hills. He would never forget the rubber legs. That week, they stayed with Mildred Bailey, got harassed in Tijuana, and took a terrifying $3 airplane ride that gave Bing a lifelong fear of heights. For the rest of his career, he always asked for hotel rooms on the lower floors. In 1926, things got worse. One talent scout said he looked too Irish and that his voice sounded like a cat in heat. No studios wanted him. Casting directors spent over $70,000 testing him, but no one signed him. His ears stuck out. His voice was too soft. He drank even more. His brothers sold trucks on the side, sometimes used for bootlegging, and that money helped him survive. Meanwhile, electrical recording was changing everything in the music world. Soft voices like Bing's suddenly worked. But he didn't know that yet. Later that year, Bing and Al landed a gig with Fanson and Marco's Vaudeville Revue. It paid $75 a week each. They performed 4 shows a day, 5 on weekends. But not everyone liked it. Their use of black music styles like scat and barrelhouse jazz upset white audiences. Theater managers got complaints. Some venues even asked them to tone it down. Their songs, China Boy, Copenhagen, San were bold. They performed with dancers. Doreen Wilde and Bobby Thompson. And that interracial collaboration stirred even more controversy, but it also got them noticed. In late October 1926, Paul Whiteheitman's orchestra caught their act in Los Angeles. Whiteheitman didn't fire them even when theater managers said to. Instead, he added pianist Harry Bars and turned the duo into a trio, the Rhythm Boys. Their 1927 hit Mississippi Mud changed everything. Recorded with cornet legend Bix's Berbeca, it made Whiteman the king of jazz. Bing, Baris, and Rinker suddenly had a sound that everyone wanted. They recorded I've Got the Girl and toured with white men across the country. In January 1927, they performed at the Paramount Theater in New York. Bing was now earning $200 a week and singing for millions on radio. Songs like From Monday On and What Price? Lyrics became bestsellers, but fame didn't erase the darkness. Bing drank too much. During the filming of King of Jazz, after an argument, he drove a woman home and crashed into another car. Both were thrown over the windshield. She was bloody and unconscious. He was arrested and locked up in Lincoln Heights Jail. Whiteheitman pulled strings to get him out. The next day, Bing showed up at the studio in handcuffs. Because of that arrest, he lost his solo number in King of Jazz. Song of the Dawn went to someone else. He still appeared in group songs like Happy Feet, but it wasn't the same. The movie cost nearly $2 million, but only made back $900,000. It was released just after the 1929 stock market crash and flopped hard. Whiteheitman had to fire 10 band members and cut salaries by 15%. But Bing kept going. He remembered Whiteheitman's 1924 concert at Ion Hall where George Gershwin debuted Rhapsody in Blue. It was meant to prove that jazz could be serious music. That concert gave Whiteheitman the crown, but it made Bing feel like an outsider. Gershwin's genius overwhelmed him. He wasn't part of that world yet, but he knew he would be. And by 1930, he would leave the Rhythm Boys behind to become something bigger. He would become Bing Crosby. On September 2, 1931, Bing Crosby signed a CBS contract that paid him $1,500 a week to sing for 15 minutes. Every night except Sunday. Just days before he had paid $7,500 to break out of his smaller $250 a week deal with the Ambassador Hotel. He showed up to the studio with a sore throat and laryngitis. Missed the first show and within hours people started whispering that maybe the West Coast Cooner had frozen up or passed out drunk. But 2 nights later he went live with Eddie Lang on guitar and Victor Young's orchestra behind him. The voice was tired but different, low and easy, and it felt close, like he was whispering right into the room. His theme song, Where the Blue of the Night Meets the Gold of the Day, played softly each night before he sang. And even though his show pulled only a 6.9 rating compared to Rudy Vallee's 24.7, CBS had found something new. By 1932, Bing's brother, Everett, had already negotiated a better deal with Chesterfield Cigarettes for $2,000 per week. The crooning era had started, and Bing Crosby was at the center of it. Hollywood moved fast. In 1932, Paramount gave Bing his film debut in The Big Broadcast, where he sang his own theme song and shared the screen with George Burns and Gracie Allen. His relaxed style worked just as well on camera as it did on the radio. The studio locked him into a 3-year $300,000 contract. And just like that, Bing Crosby became one of the most bankable stars in the country. In Going Hollywood, released in 1933 with Marion Davies. He was paid $2,000 a week above his regular salary. Because Davies worked so slowly, the shoot ran long. By the end, he'd earned $75,000. On that film alone. Time called him probably the world's best paid male singer. He spent his days on golf courses and his nights at parties soaking in the attention, the alcohol, the money. His salary jumped from $1,000 a week to $5,000 per film. It looked easy, but cracks were forming. In 1936, during the filming of Pennies from Heaven, Bing started showing up drunk to rehearsals. He'd put his own money into the Columbia Pictures production, but behind the scenes, he was distant and moody. The director watched him stumble through scenes. Crew members whispered. The public never saw any of it because the title song became a hit, holding the #1 spot for 10 straight weeks. But the drinking never stopped. Years later, he would warn his son Gary to stay away from alcohol, saying bluntly, "It killed your mother." By 1942, he was starring alongside Fred Astaire in Holiday Inn,